Hello everyone, this is your Flame Tinder coming at you from Firestar Roleplaying again. I'm heeding the request of talking about how to get into Ring of Fire. There's going to be a small series, and we're going to start off with where should you start? Where should you set your very first saga? If you and your players have never played within the Ring of Fire before, if you've never played in Kavigatail before, where should you set your saga? Now, all of these images you see here are from the books. These are all various things in the books. So this shows you the fantastical nature of Kavigatail. It shows you that basically anything is possible, but that might be a little bit overwhelming to some people. So I'm going to offer you a handful of options here. The first place I wanted to mention is going to be Bale. Now, the Kingdom of Thru and Bale are a very tumultuous place, shall we say. This is a place that is steeped in history. I'm not going to get too much into the history and lore of it. You can read about it in the saga book on page 165. I save the trouble of looking it up. And it'll tell you all about the great city-state of Bale. And apologies there for a minute, but it'll tell you all about the great city-state of Bale and what goes on in there. Now, why am I suggesting this to you for a starting place? Well, most players are going to be familiar with elves, dwarves, humans, etc. And if you're coming from D&D, the human mindset in Kavigatail is very, very different than the human mindset in Dungeons & Dragons or Pathfinder, etc. And I can make a whole video talking about humans if you want in greater detail, but to sum it up, they're very antagonistic towards other species because that they're a very new race. They're not a very old race or species in this world, and they're trying to make their place in the world. And that can be a little bit hard for some people to wrap their minds around. But if your group is willing to experiment, then Bale is a really good place to start off. You'll be human, so you know you're human. You know how a human thinks. It's easy to roleplay a human. And even though they're in different situations, you might be able to empathize with them and look at them and say, oh, I can understand why they're acting this way and why they're doing this stuff. So Bale could be a good place to start there for the fact that you can play a human. If you don't want to play a human, there's also Farum and Ogres are two more of the base species that make up a huge population of Bale. And Farum are very, very similar. Probably the most similar to other fantasy of anything in Ring of Fire to other dwarves. So you could come in pretty easily understanding a dwarf, and you'll have a pretty solid foundation of which to understand a Farum. And an ogre, while pretty exotic, is by Kavigatail versus D&D and stuff. It's not like your normal ogre. It's still fairly understandable. So you could get in there and start playing an ogre and probably be able to understand the way their mind works at least a little bit better than some of the more races like a Mihangi or something like that. It'd be pretty hard for a player who doesn't understand Kavigatail to just play a Mihangi as their first character. You probably shouldn't do that. The great city-state of Bale particularly has political intrigue everywhere. I'll give you a few ideas. This video might even go on to just talk about Bale at this point. But yeah, there's some ideas here. King Bram, and then you have each of the quarter barons. And then the quarter barons have knights, and high knights, and lady knights, and so on and so forth. So you could be playing as these knights, or these knight spouses, or something like that, and that would give you so much political intrigue. That would be almost endless fuel for political intrigue right there. If you want to do a very Game of Thrones style game, if your characters are into that Game of Thrones aspect, you can go in there and just start delving headfirst into the politics. There are a ton of temples here. If your characters wanted to get more into the religious side of things and get more into the piety and faith and what it means to have faith and piety in Kavigatail, there's a wide variety of different divinities that you could come in here. You could play a worshiper of, you could play a clergy of, you could just play somebody plays lip service. You could have the Church of Pelgan or something like that, for example, the creator of humanity. He could it could interact with your political game. So you could mix the church politics with the just everyday politics and have a lot going on there. There's different districts of Bale as well. You could have a merchant game set almost entirely in the coin district, who then maybe you deal with the royalty, but it's a little bit less Game of Thrones, a little bit more nitpicking with like a rival merchant and stuff. Like you do have dealings with the nobles, but maybe you're throwing down in a trade war or something like that with a rival merchant. Maybe you're trying to secure the deal to go and fund the Baelish army and King Bram's army with blacksmithing goods or with food or whatever, and you want to secure that deal. And there could be a whole arc of a saga set around trying to get a hold of that deal and secure that. And then, last but not least, and this is not by far you could come up with a million other ideas, but just to keep this video relatively short, another idea for it is something that I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with, a dungeon crawl. But because under Bale is a massive catacomb. The city of Bale once existed largely below the earth, but it has fallen to ruins. Its walls that once held many secrets now hold trash and sewage, but there might still be secrets buried beneath the trash and sewage. The people that live down there are the unwanted, odd creatures and strange species. The royalty do seem to be unaware of the dangers that are emerging beneath their feet as well. You could even play as some of these downtrodden, ready to rise up and tear the humans down from their thrones and cast them down to the muck as they have done to you. Or you could be playing as some mercenaries or bounty hunters tracking someone through the catacombs, or just treasure hunters going into these catacombs and looking around, trying to find ancient lost Farum secrets. The earliest levels have been mostly picked clean, but maybe you delve deeper and you find something that ought to have been forgotten, and that could spark a whole saga there just in itself. But if you have any other questions, please let me know in the comments below. But I think this should give you a pretty good idea of how to get a game started in Bale. And I think the future videos I will go through and focus on Bale. I was kind of thinking I would do multiple different locations, but I think just for the start, we're going to focus on Bale. And as it goes on, if you're interested in hearing more lore about more specific regions, I can go into those more specific regions, tell you a little bit about them. I think next time we're going to be talking about the species that are good to play and why they're good to play, and then maybe even get into stuff about the divinities. So let me know what you want to hear next. This has been Firestar Roleplaying signing off. We have a wonderful day. Goodbye, God bless, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.